I want to go back to the notion of putting your eggs in one basket. And it seems to me that throughout high school, you've engaged in many different sports, right? Within track itself, throwing the javelin, running the hurdles, running other sprints as well, in addition to playing club basketball. Do you think the fear of putting all your eggs in one basket is what drew you to try all these new things? Or do you think there was another reason for why you spent so much of your high school time exploring the different paths?
That's a really good question. One that I haven't even thought about, because that advice that my mom gave me about don't put your eggs in one basket. Maybe it subconsciously stuck with me, so it could be a possibility. But I also think I wouldn't say pressure, but encouragement from my parents to do more than one sport. They kind of thought that was a good idea, because again they knew that just doing the same sport over and over led to a lot of injuries. The first time, this is another injury, but when I was in 6th grade, I had a stress fracture in my left foot. So it's kind of a common thing of overuse, probably stemming from basketball, to get injured. So they were like, oh, let's pick a sport in the fall that's not as you're not going to be running as much. You can kind of let your body take a break. And so I was deciding between tennis and golf. And my dad was like, I think tennis would be a lot of movement, cutting on the joints on the knees. And so I decided to go with golf. And that in itself, I think, was one of the best decisions. I'm glad that my parents pushed me to do that, to kind of take a step away and try a totally new sport, which I hadn't done before. And the mental toughness that I learned from golf helped me in everything else, academics, my other sports, just life in general, because it's an incredibly mental game. And it's just you and your club and the ball, and you're just trying to get into the hole. And it's very difficult when you're sitting with yourself, and it's so easy to make mistakes. There's so many variables in your swing, weather condition, things that can go wrong. And so just using golf as to mentally grow and to be content with myself and to pick myself up. Because in the golf game, you, like I said, you only have yourself. In other sports, you have teammates to pick you up. So that was good to learn how to pick myself up. But going back to the eggs in one basket, I think too, in high school, I'm one of those people that always just likes to do everything kind of. I was also involved in some student government type of things. I did broadcasting for the football and basketball games, which started my sophomore year. And so I just like to be involved in everything and the sports. And I think too, I would also give the advice, don't put your eggs in one basket. Because I was mentioning, a new door was open when I listened to someone else's advice about trying something new. And I think that stands you should always be open to trying something new, because you never know what awaits you. And it's good. There's so many countless opportunities when you just go in with a tunnel vision, trying to stay focused into one outlet. If I just stuck with basketball, one, it may have been good. I may be somewhere else right now. Could have been somewhere else playing basketball. But the people I've met through golf, through track, through other activities, have been great. And I think too, getting worn out from doing one sport or one activity, when you put all of your eggs in that one basket, sometimes you can lose love for that sport. And I think really for anything, when you're doing it constantly, it's good to kind of take a break, step aside, try something new. That doesn't mean that you can never go revisit that thing, that activity that you like to do. But I think human nature, if you're constantly doing something, if it's almost forced upon you, you get to a point where you feel oh, I have to do this, that's when you lose the fun of it and lose the love for it. And so I do think just myself, wanting to do different activities, kept the fun and the love and everything.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that, because taking a break from the thing that you're always doing also helps you to get a new perspective, right? Because sometimes you're so locked into whatever activity or task you're doing that you feel to step back and see it all for what it really is. And maybe that period of time helped you see it from a new perspective as well. You think that's true? Or?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it made me realize basketball isn't everything. Growing up, definitely thinking that it was, like, that was the main goal, gotta get a scholarship for the sport. And I love basketball, like, favorite sport, absolutely love it. But I will say, like, there was a time period where I'd be like, oh, I have to go out and shoot hoops, or I have to go out and dribble, or else I'm gonna lose my skills. Like, this won't be good. And so I was kind of getting a little worn out and, like, losing the fun for the game. And so I think, like you said, like, taking that step back, it did give me a new perspective, and it gave me too, like, a renewed love for the game. Being able to, like, do golf beforehand, not really focus or be too worried about the upcoming season. Because I think that too, when you're, like, anticipating something and then you're still just, like, working on that one thing, like, that can cause, like, anxiety, or you just, like, lose sight of other things. And so being able to take breaks, I think you're right. It definitely lets you have another perspective on whatever activity you're pursuing, and it's good. It's good for you, definitely.
So playing devil's advocate for a little bit here, I know you're very big on not putting your eggs in one basket. I know a lot of people argue that sometimes putting your eggs all in one basket can be beneficial just because it's hard to be a master at any skill if you're kind of always jumping around, right? Like, I'm also a guy that's always, like, pretty much every year tries something new, and because of that, there seems to be an inherent lack in, like, one particular thing that I'm, like, great at, right? And if you look at, like, some of the greatest to ever do it, they've always been doing it from, like, when they were 3 years old or 4 years old, and just doing it over and over and over and over again to achieve that sense of mastery. Now, I wouldn't say you haven't done that because you've reached a pretty good spot here. I mean, state champion in javelin, you seem to achieve a notion of that mastery as well, despite preventing yourself from not putting your eggs in one basket. So how do you think you drew that balance between this need to continuously come back to this one skill to develop it versus the freedom to try out new things and try out new skills and enjoy it along the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing is, whenever I would be in that sport, like in the javelin, then I would put my eggs in one basket, if that makes sense. Then I'd be all in 110%. That is my main focus. That is what my goal is. The end goal is to excel at whatever I'm doing at the moment. That being said, whenever it was golf season, I focused all on golf. Focusing on that, getting my swing better, working on my mental game, things like that. And then basketball season, focusing on that. And I think you're right, like, the greats, like, they have gone 3 years old all the way up, focusing on that one sport for the most part. But I think too, especially for athletes, trying when you're younger, like, I think putting kids in, like, every different sport that you can imagine is really good, because I know if you do the same repetition over and over in the same sport, you're bound to get hurt, or you're bound to get tired or something like that. So I think when kids are younger, putting them in all different sports, and then kind of seeing, like, oh, what are you good at? Then kind of focusing on that, like, oh, I found something that I'm above average good at. I don't really have to try too hard at this, like, I'm already naturally good. And that's when you're like, okay, now I need to focus on this. This is what I'm gonna do. And so I think there's definitely different ways to do it, and it depends on the person too. Like, I know, like, Kobe Bryant, great basketball player. He just pops into my head. Like, I know, like, I've seen, like, him talk about things. The amount of dedication and work he would do in high school, especially. Like, he'd wake up early, go to the gym before school, go to school, practice, get home, do some homework, maybe even go shoot some more hoops, stuff like that. And he really focused in on that. And I think that's great. I think too, I will say, is that I have a feeling like he knew, like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm pretty gifted at it, and I'm gonna keep working, and this is what I wanna do, and I love it so much that I'm willing to this is all I'm gonna focus on. But even though I did think that with basketball, I'm glad I tried other things, because it made me, now that I'm with the javelin, now that I've found that new thing, I think sometimes, like people like Kobe Bryant, they knew. But sometimes people, they think they know, but then when they go ahead and try new things, then they're like, oh, this is my new craft. Like, I like this a lot more. Like, I'm going to be really good at this. And then from that moment, be like, okay, now I'm going to pursue this. So now that I've like thrown javelin, and I'll throw it again in the spring, and then that's where I'm recruited for to go to West Point, then like now that is my, like, I'm going to dedicate this 110%.
If you enjoyed that clip, then click here to see a playlist with all of the best segments from the podcast over the last month. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.